And thus concludes The Stranger by Albert Kim. You guys again. Sorry, I must have nodded off there for a minute. Much like I did watching the NFL this past week. Anyways, welcome to the Tonto's Demise Week 9 recap. This week was another snooze fest in terms of the NFL, in my opinion. Nobody even came close to 200 points this week. Highest score was 188. We got winning scores with 161, 167, 173, 151, 144. The streak continues. I don't know what's going on. It's starting to weird me out. Whatever it is, points and scoring are way down across the board for the most part. So, let's see. Did anything crazy happen? Josh right here got the highest score, said 188, but that's like nobody really went crazy. I mean, a couple guys popped off here and there, but the rest of your teams, nobody else did. So it's even those couple guys who did pop off, your scores are still way down across the board. So I guess the good news is nobody really got any big time injuries this week, so that's always good. Anyway, but I mean, we did have some low scoring matchups. We did have some that were, the scores were kind of close in some of these ones. One matchup did come down to Monday night. A couple of them were potentially down, but the guys who were down were too far down to make the full comeback there on Monday night there. Sorry, I don't know why. Yahoo just crashed and refreshed there for me for some reason. All right. So anyway, why don't we just get right down into it? As always, we start with the defending champion. This week it is the Springfield, this year I guess I should say, the Springfield Isotopes still trying to climb their way back up the standings after being down in the basement for a little while there. And going up against the Dub C Hooligans, both teams trying to climb their way back into contention, where both teams actually made their way back to 500. Unfortunately, one of them was going to move on, and one of them was going to drop back under this week, and it was the Dub C Hooligans dropping down, and the Topes getting the victory. Final score here, 161 to 140.9 for Dub C. All right, Stafford goes for 45 points. Wide receivers, T. Higgins, Deontay, and Devontae. 13.8, 11.7, and 10.2 respectively. Not much for Devontae. I think he had like 15 or 16 targets. Only caught 6 of them for 42 yards. Aaron Rodgers cannot come back fast enough. This one could have gone all sorts of ways with Chase Edmonds spraining his ankle on the first play of the Cardinals in their game, their very first play of the game, and going out after getting 3 yards. So 0.3 for him. McNichols, the other running back spot, goes for 6.5. Gesicki, 9.5. Robert Woods in the flex down there just in case he ended up not playing. Both him and Stafford did not practice all week last week and were kind of questionable going into the Sunday night game there. I guess perhaps that was why they looked so bad on Sunday night there. I mean, credit where credit is due. The Tennessee Titans defensive line came out and just dominated the Rams offensive line. But can't help but wonder if perhaps those two guys, especially Stafford not practicing all week, how much that had to do with his poor performance, at least in the first half there. Folk kicker goes for about, did I say Woods went for 17.5 there in the flex? And Folk about 5.5. And then big factor here in this one was the Miami Dolphins defense at home against Houston. They put up 41 points this week. So yeah, that was enough to, despite losing Edmonds really early in that game, get the Isotopes past Dub C Hooligans this week. He has Carr go for 41.3. So much for trading for Jalen Hurts there and spending on Boston Scott. Yeah. Eagles fan for life, I guess. That's the hill you will die on. Eagles, I said, you get those guys and then you park them on the bench. Carr goes for 41.3. Your receivers, Cooper, Marquise Brown, and Jameson Crowder. Surprising outcome there with Denver really crushing the Cowboys. Amari Cooper, just really only, he's going to get you, let's see, he got you 5.7. There's only two ways he's going to go. He's going to get you 5 points or he's going to get you 50. Fortunately, this week was a 5-pointer. Brown, thanks to some overtime there, he has a couple catches, did pile up a lot of his points there in that overtime. And towards the end of that game, 20.5 points for him. Crowder, 8.8. Your best play, Cordarrelle Patterson, still, he goes for another 19.5 points, boosted by a 60-some yard reception near the end of that game to put the Falcons in field goal position. So half of his receiving yards came on that last catch there. Eli Mitchell for San Fran, let's see, 5 catches. He goes for just under 13 points. Kelsey, 17.8, scores a touchdown there. In your flex, another Baltimore wide receiver, Bateman, he goes for 10. Zerline, your kicker, big 0. They only went for extra points. 2-point conversions, no extra points, no field goals. They were shut out till the end, almost the end of the game there, some garbage time. And now I see Zerline has got the COVID-19 tag, so that is not good. And also, double whammy here with the Dallas defense. Dallas really did you dirty this week. Yahoo says 4, and that was actually the correct score because I didn't have to do any adjustments on the Dub C Hooligans score this week. So, yeah, just not quite enough there from the Dub C Hooligans. Said no points from your kicker. Ended up being a 21-point margin there. Topes pulled ahead a little bit on Sunday night there with Stafford and Woods. And then Deontay was able to pull out about 12 points on Monday night to widen the gap there. Otherwise, this matchup was a little bit closer than it might have looked there. But anyway, so both teams were 4-4 at 500. And the Topes will move up to 5-4. They are in all the way up to 5th place now. And the Dub C Hooligans dropped to 4-5. They are in 9th place. So fortunately, I said doing this Tuesday night instead. All the standings are correct. All the scores are correct. I don't have to mess around with that. All right, so let's just go right down the line. Shawshank Athletics going up against CMC Music Factory. And CMC got CMC back this week. In the flex there, I see. But it was not enough to bring a victory to CMC, to the factory. Shawshank Athletics, highest score of the week, gets 188.5. CMC goes for 166.15. So a 22.5 point difference there. Shawshank, we got Herbert putting up 70 on the other there. Almost doubling up CMC's quarterback score there. Cooper Kupp goes for 20.5 points, 11 catches, 95 yards. Chase, just under 9. Pittman scores another touchdown. He goes for 17.5. Darrell Williams, 10.7. Dalvin Cook, 18.2. But I saw on Twitter Dalvin Cook's got something going on where he has been accused of abuse by a woman. So I am not sure. Um, hmm. Assault and battery by a 29-year-old woman there. So he accuses Cook of holding her hostage with a firearm. So I am not sure if anything immediate is going to happen with that. That's probably still kind of breaking news. So I don't know what's going to go on there with Dalvin Cook going forward. That's something to definitely keep our eyes on. But he went over 100 yards, 18.2. Mark Andrews, 9.5. Justin Jefferson in the flex. Touchdown for him. He goes for an even 17. Kicker Carlson from Vegas. Couple field goals, couple missed kicks there. He gets you about 8 points. And then the New Orleans Saints defense. Previously mentioned that Cordarrelle Patterson caught a long pass at the end there to get them in the field goal range, and the Falcons there, and they defeated the New Orleans Saints. Your defense here. Let's see. Yahoo says 5, but your score must have actually been 8, I believe. A little bit, even though they lost the game there, didn't do too much. But it was enough to get past CMC Music Factory. Let's take a look at what went on here. He has some guys on Monday night, Roethlisberger and Mooney. 2 of his best performers, actually, they ended up being. But he was down by over 80 points going into Monday night. And these guys got 60 of those 80. So not too bad. Got it within 22 there. You needed 82 and a half. You got 80 or 60 and a half there. So that was a tall task, asking Roethlisberger and Mooney. Mooney certainly carried his load. He scored 2 touchdowns there. A couple of other guys on CMC's team that didn't quite perform here. Roethlisberger goes for 39.25, so just under 40. Mooney said 2 touchdowns, 20 and a half points for him. Julio, 7.5. Big problem here was Edwards from Vegas. Probably thought he would do something there with the Ruggs being permanently out of the lineup now. He got 0. Big one here though. One of the big ones of the week. James Conner, thanks to Edmonds probably going down on that first play, he pops off for almost 100 rushing yards, 3 total touchdowns. He goes for 40 and a half points. James Conner this week. Carter, the other running back, 9.5. Goddard, 7.5. McCaffrey coming back, he gets you 14.5. So that was a tough matchup against New England there. And the rest of the Panthers are kind of falling apart around CMC, picking up perhaps a bad time to be coming back. But perhaps a good fantasy time for CMC. He's probably just going to get peppered with targets for McCaffrey there, especially hitting the receiving game. So that was a tough matchup to be coming back to. So even though you would like more from McCaffrey there, that was a tough matchup. He scores maybe a touchdown or 2. Maybe changes things here a little bit for you. But yeah, again, that was a tough matchup, and that 0 from Edwards definitely didn't help. Your kicker and your defense, again, both from the Rams, Gay, and the Rams defense there. Looks like Gay got you about 12 points or so. He kicked you a 50-yard field goal. A couple other shorter ones there. So yeah, about 12 or so. And then the Rams defense, Yahoo says 9. We bumped you up to about, looks like 16 total for their defense there. But yeah, the big one here was Herbert. He pops off for 70 points. And for CMC, Edwards getting that 0, even though Connor popped off. So no Kyler Murray this week. Perhaps that could have played a factor here. Really helped you out if he had played. Maybe Connor wouldn't have had such a big game because Murray likes to do some of that rushing himself here. But yeah, just things kind of went Shawshank's way Said, especially in the quarterback situation, Justin had to put in Roethlisberger and no Murray. Probably not what you wanted to do. So those 22 points were definitely could have been there, but it's just the way it went this week, unfortunately. And Shawshank, he moves. Both teams now are currently 4-5 after this week. With Shawshank a slight advantage here, he's in 6th place, while CMC Music Factory drops to 4-5. He is in 8th place now. All right, then we have Disco versus Yinzer Jags, the matchup of the week. This one actually did come down to Sunday night, as Disco was down by about 5.5 points, and he just had Adrian Peterson left to go. And Disco was actually trailing this one until I don't know if it was the 4th quarter or sometime near the end. Peterson was able to punch in a touchdown and get the points that Disco needed to knock off first place Yinzer Jags and pull everybody in, a little bit closer. Said his 2-game lead is no longer there. He is now down to a 1-game lead over the rest of all those guys. Disco gets the win, 151.5 to 147.2. So for Disco, Mahomes, 32. Tyreek, 7.3. Yikes. What is going on there? Judy, 13 points. Mike Williams, 7.8. Jonathan Taylor, the big one there on Thursday night, 40 points from him thanks to a long touchdown. So you got to kind of revel in that for a while. But then the rest of your team forgot to show up. Didn't really affect you too much here. Fortunately, you still were able to squeak out the victory. Said Peterson ended up getting 9.5 points when he needed about 5.5 there. Waller, 16.2, pretty good score. No touchdowns there from him. Hardman in the flex, 5 points, just enough. And Prater, your kicker, short field goal, couple PATs, he gets you about 6.5. And then Carolina Panthers defense, tough matchup against New England there. A couple turnovers, actually. They didn't do too bad. Yahoo says 14. Looks like we maybe bumped you up to 17 or so. But it was enough to get past Yinzer Jags this week, who has Josh Allen against Jacksonville Jaguars. Still managed to complete 31 passes, but they only put 6 points on the board. A couple interceptions, a fumble lost. He only puts up 41.2 this week in a matchup. Only a 4.3 point difference there. A lot of things could have gone differently. Yinzer Jags wide receivers all in single digits here. Let's see. DJ Moore, 7.5. Cortland Sutton, just under 4. Only 1 catch. Half of his points came from a 2-point conversion. Traquan Smith, 8.5. Running backs Eckler and Josh Jacobs, 11.2 and 13.5. Kind of quiet game for Eckler there. Said this. I'm sure a lot of disappointment looking up and down Yinzer Jags lineup this week, thinking of what could have been. Kittle comes back, goes off for 100 yards and a touchdown, gets you 20 points. Booker in the flex goes just under 100 yards. He's still got 99 there. Couldn't quite get you that 100 yard 3-point bonus there. Still would not be enough. Even if they bumped it back up to 100 for him, would not be enough to change the outcome of this matchup. 15.2 is what he ended up getting. McManus, several field goals from him this week. He gets you about 11 points. Vegas defense going against the Giants there. Yahoo says 12. Looks like we bumped you up to about 15. So, yeah, I think... Actually, Carolina's defensive score was actually correct. And Vegas said we got an extra 3. I think both of you guys got an extra 3. One from Taylor's long touchdown, And then Matt's defense had 3 more points than what Yahoo said. Because we were trying to figure it out there going into, after the 4 o'clock games, how many points he was going to need from Adrian Peterson. Bit there for Disco, how much what the difference was there between them. And it ended up figuring out that it was about 5.2 or something like that. Because I think whatever Detling's score was, all you had to do was add like half of a point or something like that. And then technically the scores on the difference on Yahoo was correct without the adjustments there, since technically both of you gained 3, plus the fractional points for McManus there. But whatever. So those things didn't quite pan out for Yinzer Jags this week. Still got to say that Jacksonville-Buffalo game might have been definitely... There were a lot of surprises this week, but that might be the top of the list there. Yinzer Jags drops to 7-2, still in first place though, but Disco is able to knock him back and bring himself, Possum Magic, and Biscuits and Porn all to within 1 game of Yinzer Jags there, and he is in 6-3, although Disco is right there on top of the 6-3s in second place after this week. All right, and I think fortunately both of you guys, even despite those scores, you both survived the knockout pool. We said goodbye to Gags this week, and so Disco, Josh, and Detling are the 3 teams still left there. All right, speaking of Gags, he goes up against Ed Lager. Both of these guys were 3-5, trying to avoid dropping to 3-6 and being in a difficult spot moving forward in terms of trying to make a playoff run here. One of you was going to go to 3-6. One of you was going to move up. And unfortunately for Gags, Ed Lager gets the victory this week, 167.1 to 131.65. Let's see, for Ed Lager, both of your quarterbacks went off in this matchup. Lamar Jackson goes for 61.5. Your receivers, Cooks, Keenan, and Callaway, 11.5, 22.5, and another 11.5 respectively. Gaskin and Herbert in the running back spots there. I'm guessing Herbert wasn't much you could do. So all your other running backs are either on bye or out with injury this week. So you knew Montgomery was coming back. But I think you still were locked into having to play Herbert there as one of your running backs. So Gaskin got 15.5. Herbert only got 1.3. So with Montgomery coming back, he did pretty much nothing there for you. Fortunately, the matchup was already basically decided going into Monday night there, and Ed just kind of padded his lead. Ed actually had about an 8-point lead after Sunday. So going into Monday night, he kind of just padded that lead there. But yeah, you've got some... Herbert is probably going to be going back to the bench, but you got Gibson and Swift there, and Saquon still. All those guys coming back, hopefully for you, and you won't need to worry about Herbert no longer being relevant, at least for the time being. Arnold, tight end from Jacksonville, goes for 10 points. Allen Robinson in the flex, 10.8. Bass, the kicker from Buffalo, a couple field goals there, gets you about 6.5. And then the Bears defense actually made a game of it there on Monday night. Scored a touchdown, had a couple sacks and a turnover. Yahoo says 13. Might have been 16. I think we bumped you up a little bit. So you didn't have any of the long touchdowns. There were only 3 this week. It must have been 16 for the Bears defense there. But still, it was enough to get past Gags to riches. Like I said, both quarterbacks, big games this week. 58 for Matt Ryan and Gags. 61 and 58, pretty good scores there. But unfortunately for Gags, the rest of the way down, we're seeing lots of single-digit scores. A.J. Brown, 9.2. Just keep sticking with this Tony guy from the Giants here. 1.7. He actually lost some points from rushing yards because he had one catch for 9 yards, but -2 rushing. So he knocked you back down to 1.7. Waddle, your other receiver, 16.5. The only other guy who showed up this week for you. Zach Moss, 4.5. D'Ernest Johnson, 1.5. Mo Alley Cox, 3.5. Kenny Golladay, another Giants wide receiver, 4.5. Butker, about 9 points, your kicker. And then the Buffalo Bills defense, Yahoo says 11, but looks like the bump is about 13. I'm going to guess 12. So 23 probably, something like that for the Buffalo defense. But yeah, despite Matt Ryan getting those 60 points for you, everything else just kind of did not work out for you. James Robinson was out this week, your running back. DK Metcalf on bye, Gronk on bye. Gallup still waiting for him to come back. Things just not falling into place for you. Robinson, he had a tough matchup against Buffalo. You would have been tossing him out there against your own defense. The match, it ended up being a 36-point difference here. So, really not sure, Gags, what you could have done with your lineup, with what you had there. The Giants defense actually did pretty good. They scored a touchdown, had a couple turnovers, but I don't know that the yardage and difference there would have been as drastic of a difference there from Buffalo to make a difference in this outcome. Really, just what it came down to, it looks like, is your guys not doing too much and you missing a couple of your big guns there. So yeah, Ed Logger, he moves up to 4-5, and he is in 7th place, knocking on the playoff door there. And Gags to Riches, unfortunately, you drop to 3-6, and you actually fall all the way down to 11th place. All right, next up we've got, and also just a reminder, Gags, the knocked out from the knockout pool this week. All right, next up, Possum Magic versus Hillbillies on PCP. Hillbillies trying to stay alive, keep their season and their hopes going, trying not to get loss number 7, which would mean the best possible record you could have is 7-7, and you got to win out the rest of your schedule just to do that. Unfortunately, you were not able to do it this week, as Possum Magic takes you down 173.6 to 132.7. For Possum, Carson Wentz goes off for 49 points this week. Let's see, Thielen, Diggs, and Agnew, a Jacksonville wide receiver there. Thielen, only 8.5, but he did score a touchdown. 2 catches for 6 yards, but he did get a touchdown. Diggs, 14.5. Agnew, 6.8. Mixon, 2 touchdowns for him. Couple catches there, 28 points even for you, big one there. Harris, your other running back from New England, goes for 10.5. Higbee, your tight end, 10.1. Chubb actually was a big one here. He pops off 2 touchdowns. One of them was a long touchdown, 137 yards. So with his long touchdown, he actually scored you 36.3. But now he's got the COVID tag next to him, Chubb here. So Possum Magic, you are probably going to be without him in week 10. Cleveland have their bye already? Their bye's not till week 13. They're playing at New England this week. That's right. So that's going to be a difficult matchup even more difficult matchup for Cleveland than it was before. So yeah, we'll see. I'm going to expect that he's going to be out for at least a week there. You might get him back next week, so I'm not sure who you're playing there. But at least you said you got the victory here. hopefully you'll be able to swing something and put together a lineup without Chubb. I think you've had to do it already this year because he's had a little bit of injury problems there. So we'll see what you can do here. You might have so you can pop somebody into the flex there coming up this week. Koo, so he kicked that game-winning field goal. He got you about 9 points, and then San Francisco's defense. I do believe that Yahoo says 2, but the actual score was -1 because they got 2 sacks, but they lost. So, that takes you back to -1, and they gave up too many points. They gave up too much of everything and stayed at -1. Fortunately, I guess Chubb's long touchdown bonus there got you kind of salvaged that, I guess, getting you back to 1 or 2. But yeah, San Francisco's defense, -1. Fortunately, it did not cost you this week. You were able to get the victory over Hillbillies on PCP, who had Burrow go for only 36.2, despite 28 completions, couple turnovers. Don't know if he had any touchdowns. Really quite a surprise, I think, this year as just how bad he has been. I know he's coming off the major knee surgery, but he's shown some flashes this year. I don't know if it's he's just not in the right mindset yet. Still, always in the back of your mind, I would think that once you suffer an injury like that you're hesitant to play as freely as you might have before that injury. But I don't know, just Burrow. I mean, he was lights out last year, fantasy-wise, putting up hundreds of yards per game. I'm talking 300-400 yard efforts. He's had a couple big ones this year, but for the most part, man, he has just been really disappointing. He's had some 50-pointers, but he's also had a couple 20 and 30-pointers. Just kind of a disappointing performance for him, despite having such a great trio of receivers there. Mixon staying healthy and doing a lot of work there. Knock on wood, I guess, for Possum Magic. Talking about Mixon, guy who seems to never be able to stay healthy, but so far so good. And just Burrow. It's definitely been a surprise that he's underperformed this much so far. Receivers: Debo, Boyd, and Beasley. Debo 11.3. Speaking of Burrow, dragging people down with him. Trust me, I know. Boyd only goes for 2.1. Beasley 11.3, same score as Debo. Kamara and Najee Harris carrying the weight for you. 20.5, 16.8 for Najee. Zach Ertz only 5.5. Carlos Hyde in the flex there. Can't believe somebody's starting Carlos Hyde against the Buffalo Bills defense. He got you 6.3. Joseph, the Vikings kicker, gets you about 7.5. And then the Steelers defense, they tried. They got you, Yahoo says 12. I don't think you had any long touchdown bonuses there. So the actual score must have been 15 for the Steelers defense there. They ended up winning the game, but they ended up giving up a lot of yards and points there towards the end when the Bears tried to make a comeback there. But yeah, just the way it's going this year. For Hillbillies on PCP, unfortunately, he drops to 2-7. He is in 12th place, while Possum Magic moves up to 6-3. He is in 4th place. And then we've got the final of the 3 6-3 teams now, as Biscuits and Porn going up against Saquon It Ain't So, and Say It Ain't So for Jay. He gets another difficult, hard to swallow defeat this week. Biscuits and Porn gets the victory, 144.9 to 140.55. So a 4.5 point difference here. Let's see. Saquon was actually in the lead going into Monday night. Let's see. Excuse me. Let's see. Biscuits was down Just under 3 points with Chase Claypool. His name was escaping me for a second there. With Chase Claypool left to go, and Chase was kind enough to at least get those points pretty early on in the game instead of making you have to suffer. Claypool he only scored 7.3. But yeah, I think he had one of his catches was for 20 some yards pretty early on in that game, and it bumped Biscuits ahead, got him the points he needed. Then he tacked on a little bit more towards the end of the game there, but still only 7.3 from Claypool. But it was enough to get past Saquon. Excuse me. What was I going to say? Yeah, but again, just another difficult defeat for Saquon, I think. So, Biscuits, no Tom Brady this week. He had to start Baker Mayfield. 33 points for him. Devontae Smith finally showing up for you. Over 100 yards and a touchdown. 22.5 points this week. His best showing of the year so far, actually. Chase Claypool said he got you 7.3. CeeDee Lamb only 4.3. Perhaps that a big factor in this matchup was Dak and CeeDee Lamb plus Zeke. The Cowboys really not doing much of anything. Another one that I don't think any of us really saw coming. Denver blowing out the Cowboys in Dallas. That definitely had a significant effect on this matchup here. CeeDee Lamb, only 2 catches for him, 4.5 points. Aaron Jones, only 5.5 points. What's his name? Jordan Love in at quarterback for Green Bay this week. Does not look like he has it. They drafted him last year, right? So he's had a whole year and a half under his belt on the team there, and still just looked like he could not do anything right or knew what was going on. So Aaron Jones dragged him down with him. Fortunately, only 5.3 for you. All on rushing stats, no receptions there. Unusual output for Aaron Jones there. Fortunately for Biscuits, did not cost him in the outcome of this matchup. Zeke goes for 12.5. Jared Cook, 10.8. Van Jefferson in the flex goes for 7.1. Your kicker, Mason Crosby, goes for, I don't know what it was. Yahoo says -1 because he missed 2 kicks, but he did make a 30-yard field goal. Actually, no, he did. He missed both of his field goals. He made a PAT. Yeah. So actually it was -1 because both of his kicks that he missed were field goals. And so any extra fractional points there, non-existent. So it was actually, -1. And then New England Patriots defense. Yahoo says 25, but we actually bumped you up a pretty good amount here. Looks like another 18 points or so for the Patriots defense. Looks like they scored, they had a long touchdown. They scored 3 interceptions. Said one of those interceptions went for a long touchdown there. So they actually got you about 43, 44 points or so. And that was probably the factor that swung this one. This kind of stink fest, this snooze fest. Nobody deserved it. Anybody deserved to win this matchup? But yeah, it ended up being probably the big factor here. If somebody had tackled that guy instead of letting him run the interception all the way back, this matchup goes the other way. Unfortunately for Saquon, it ain't so. Said you had I don't know if you might have still had Aaron Rodgers in your starting lineup there before he got diagnosed with COVID and he went out. I think you did. But then you had to start Dak, which having to start Dak. Oh yeah, no, twist my arm on that one. But yeah, ended up. Who knows what would have happened? Because Rodgers would have been playing the Chiefs, and who knows what could have happened there. But anyway, Dak ends up only going for 39 points this week. His 2 touchdowns coming in garbage time, but it wasn't quite enough. said to get past Biscuits. Really, all sorts of things that could have gone differently when you have these several matchups that were this close this week. Your receivers, Kirk, Sanders, and Renfro. 17.75 for Kirk, 10.5 for Sanders, just under 18 for Renfro. Running backs, Darrell Henderson goes for 8.8. And then hoping for another miracle from this Gore from the Chiefs. Another hoping for another big game from him. Unfortunately, he could not deliver for you this week. He only goes for 3 points. Taking a look at your bench here, you had Bolden. Is your only other available running back was, so you had a wide receiver in your flex. Yikes. Really nothing. You could have put Freiermuth in the flex there instead of Chenault. Might have been a decent decision playing anybody against the Buffalo Bills defense fantasy wise is not ideal, but you did it. You went with it anyway, so you really didn't have, other than Bolden. Is that a better choice than Gore? I don't know. But those were kind of your only two choices this week. And unfortunately, Gore was the wrong choice. You actually would have been better off going with Bolden. Easy for me to sit here and say that now, though. Kyle Pitts, 9.2. Chenault, again in the flex, only 6 points for him. Your kicker, Tucker, goes for about 11. And then the Colts defense, Yahoo says 8. We bumped you up. Did you have a long touchdown? You did not. We bumped you up, looks like 10 or so. So it must have been 9. It's about 17 points, I'm going to say, from the Indianapolis Colts defense. They ended up giving up a lot of points and a lot of yards, even though they had a couple turnovers and a sack there. So all sorts of things that could have gone differently for both of you guys this week. I mean, Dak doing better certainly should have meant that CeeDee Lamb did better. And every time Lamb gets a completion, anytime Dak in a matchup like this with quarterback versus wide receiver, anytime the quarterback throws a completion to your opponent's wide receiver, your wide receiver, both of you guys are gaining points, but your wide receiver, as we know, is going to gain more points each time than your quarterback would. But still, plus he had Zeke, so anytime Dak was throwing to Zeke, you were gaining more points for Zeke than Prescott was getting. But yeah, just a quirky, kind of strange matchup the way that this one played out. Unfortunately, you guys both going in different directions here as Biscuits moves up to 6-3. He's in third place, while Saquon drops to 3-6, and he is in 10th place. All right, looks like that is everybody for week 9. Again, another low-scoring week. Just watching kind of on Sunday, just kind of watching some football there, seeing what was going on, and just waiting for something interesting to happen, an interesting game, exciting game, and just across the board, man. Some of these games, said Atlanta coming back there, just kind of made that kind of interesting. The Ravens-Vikings game, actually, that actually not too bad to watch as they came back, went to overtime there. The Chargers-Eagles game, that was actually probably pretty good. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Steelers game on Monday night ended up being the fourth quarter. That was like the only part of the game I watched was the fourth quarter. That was probably the only time worth watching there, other than I did see that said Claypool had gotten Jim the points that he needed to push him ahead pretty early on in that matchup, so I stopped paying attention. Didn't do the recap last night because I was kind of here in this room's kind of getting a little cluttery, going through some stuff, shredding stuff over there, going through doing some cleanup here, and kind of just got lost in doing that. Lost track of time, didn't really feel like sitting down and doing the recap there, just kept on plugging away at what I was doing. So here we are, Tuesday night, doing the recap. But yeah, some of these matchups, they ended up being pretty close. So Disco needed Adrian Peterson to get that last touchdown. Biscuits needed Claypool to get a little bit of points there, push him ahead. Said Topes pulled ahead on Sunday night there too of Dub C. CMC couldn't quite make the comeback. Ed Lager was already ahead on Monday night there. Hillbillies, I guess, had a chance at making a huge comeback, but they would have needed, 73 points from the Steelers' defense and Najee Harris. That is a pretty tall task there, asking a lot from them. But yeah, and then it said Biscuits and Saquon getting a 4-point difference there. So things getting pretty muddled in the middle here, as we like to see. Said Disco, Biscuits, and Possum Magic can thank Disco for bringing Yinzer Jags down this week and the separation to only one game between those guys. Only one team 5-4. That's the Topes. But then we've got 4 teams nipping at their heels at 4-5. Jay and Gags dropping to 3-6. Brian dropping to 2-7. You guys need to turn it around real quick, or things are going to be looking bad for you. So talking to Detling a little bit about this. We said we're heading into week 10. So we've only got 5 weeks of the regular season left. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 5 weeks left. A couple of you guys still said more than half the league is under 500. Said 7 teams are under 500. Only 5 are above. So trying to catch Yinzer Jags. We can basically say he's going to meet in the playoffs. Disco, Biscuits, and Possum at 6-3. 5 games left. Basically, they only need to win 2 of those. Suffice to say, they can probably say that they're going to be in the playoffs there. Those 3 guys said, but then the rest of the way, Isotopes, Shawshank, Ed, Justin, Kevin, even Jay and Gags down there. Just looking at these standings here, said if we only have 6 playoff spots, obviously, and at least 4 of those, in my opinion, are going to be taken up already by Yinzer Jags, Disco, Biscuits, and Possum, unless something crazy happens going forward here. And in my opinion, Shawshank is going to move his way up into playoff contention. I just don't see any way that doesn't happen looking at his lineup. So the way I'm looking at it is that means 5 of the playoff spots are basically already claimed. And I'm just fighting for that last spot. There's really, so that's going to be one of, said me, at least as of right now, not calling anybody saying one way or the other, as of right now, me, Ed, Justin, Kevin, Jay, Gags, that's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. We're all fighting for one spot, basically. Said 5 of us are not going to get it. I'm basically looking at it as fighting my way for that number 6 seed. That's basically the only hope that I have at this point, even though kind of sitting nice at 5-4 above you guys. But unless Biscuits and Possum and Disco all said 6-3, performing pretty strongly. Going to be difficult to climb ahead of any of those guys. So there's only 5 weeks to go. Anything can happen, obviously, but it's going to be a long road ahead. And so even those guys who are 4-5, not out of it. 2 weeks from now, you could easily be 6-5 and right in the middle of it. So yeah, we're basically going to be a whole bunch of us fighting for one playoff spot. So it's going to be a difficult grind. A lot of us are going to be going home disappointed, I think, after week 14. All right. So, and I'm already dreading week 14 because of what I said before about the concert that I'm going to rescheduled for that Monday night in December, which is actually the final game of week 14, the final game of our regular season. And Stafford and Woods, I think, are going to be going in that matchup. So I'm going to be at my concert that I've been waiting 2 years to go to. When watching to see what happens with. Let me take a quick look here. Oh yeah, it's going to be Stafford. It's the Rams at the Cardinals. So Justin's going to have Kyler Murray. I'm going to have Stafford and Woods. He's going to have James Conner too. So there's going to be a whole lot riding on that matchup. Rams defense. So will he start the Rams defense against his own quarterback? That'll be an interesting thing there. But anyway, I am already dreading just the mental sort of chaos that's going to be going on, trying to enjoy that show and not be thinking about fantasy football that night. But still a month away. Anyway, what do we got looking forward here? Just a quick peek at week 10. We got Biscuits versus the Topes. Topes trying to get back, not get knocked back to 500. Maybe take down one of the 6 and 3s here. Going to be a tough matchup either way. CMC versus Hillbillies. The predictions are pretty much even there. CMC trying to get back to 500. Hillbillies perhaps just trying to knock somebody else down with him. Disco going up against Ed Logger, 4 and 5. Ed Logger trying to get back to 500 too. Disco's current projection is over 200. Thanks to making a trade that basically cost him nothing earlier this evening, getting I believe one of the highest scoring fantasy in the league fantasy defenses, Arizona. Not gonna lie, I was working on that. I thought I was gonna get them, but then Disco swoops in and makes. Personally, I don't know how it's a better offer. J.K. Dobbins for Arizona Cardinals. That cost Disco. I don't care what Disco says that's gonna bother him. It's gonna hurt him later. You just gave up. You gave up nothing. You're not gonna not keep Jonathan Taylor. You're not gonna not keep Waller next year. We know you're. I mean, we're going. There's no. I don't know. I'm so angry. I don't know what to say. No, I'm not really, but I'm assuming that we're going back to 2 keepers next year. None of this crap with 3 still. I don't know why we had 3 again this year even, but hopefully we will be going back to 2. And let's face it, you were keeping Dobbins in the IR. You weren't going to keep him. You're not. I mean, maybe Jonathan Taylor. Maybe something happens to him that he doesn't pan out, but as of right this very moment, God forbid something happens to either one of those. I don't want that to happen. But let's not kid ourselves. You're keeping Taylor and you're keeping Waller, and Dobbins is nothing to you. Just the trade bait that you needed. And I still coming off. I don't understand why. And I said this to Brian. Why are you guys so in love with J.K. Dobbins? I do not get it. Especially now that he's torn his ACL. And Brian's like, I'm kind of working towards thinking about next year, all right, and accumulating some guys with keeper potential. But I'm like, dude, Dobbins and Etienne, you're like building up some draft capital for next year, like a foundation for your, for keepers, for thinking about stuff for next year. But like, why are you building your foundation on running backs who are coming back from ACL tears? Like, that's not a very solid foundation, if you ask me, if that's how you're planning to put your team together next year. Look at Saquon this year. He's still not right. These guys coming back from ACL tears, like those are the guys you are like invested in. You don't, I don't know. it doesn't make sense to me, but that's just me. You guys are free, obviously, to do whatever you want. But yeah, I just, again, um, building your foundation, investing your foundation on running backs who are coming back from ACL tears. That is just um, that scares me. Maybe it doesn't scare you. That's fine. But again, I'm not that big of a fan of J.K. Dobbins to begin with. Um, Lamar Jackson he does so much himself. Um, they're not a team that is a workhorse running back team. Like obviously, even though they're cycling through running backs in a rotation this year, I see no reason why that's not going to continue. I think Brian seems to think that J.K. is going to be the workhorse next year. That's kind of what he's banking on. But still, I feel like you could. The reasoning for this trade for me, in my opinion, is shaky at best. Maybe I'll end up being proven wrong, but if I guess you're planning on using Dobbins as a keeper next year, that's your prerogative. But as far as I'm concerned, I will be surprised if that guy is someone who ever ends up on my team in the course of his career. Yeah, I don't know. I said again, I don't understand what the obsession with him specifically is that everyone's so in love with J.K. Dobbins. Especially to think that he is worth what you gave up. Not just what you gave up, but who you gave it to, and it cost him nothing to get one of the better defenses in the league this year so far. Yeah, so the rest of us who are fighting for a playoff spot are kind of just like a little bit perplexed about that. I mean, is it a little bit too early to be already kind of throwing in the towel and thinking about next year, building up Disco there for things against the rest of us there, I guess. But yeah, that's just how it is. You just have to kind of deal with it. The trades that people make, they make what they make. There's nothing crazy about it. I understand both points of it. We don't veto trades unless things are really, really obnoxiously stupid, and that never happens around here anyway. So people do what they do, and you just kind of have to mind your own team. I was gonna say mind your own team, tend to your own team. Ended up being, and for some reason the word "mend" came out of my mouth then. And just kind of said, put your head down, grind away, do what you got to do, and not worry too much about what other people are doing, and put the best lineup out there each week that you can. So other things going on. So yeah. So Disco. I got through there. Kind of stopped. Ed Logger said he's going to be trying to get back to 500 this week, but he's got a tough task against Disco. Disco will try to knock him down to 4-6. We've got 2 4-5 teams against each other. Dub C versus Shawshank. One of you will definitely be dropping to 4-6 after this week. Saquon and Ain't So versus Gags, 2 3-6s. So one of you will definitely be dropping to 3-7 after this week. And good matchup here. 1 versus 4. Yinzer Jags versus Possum. So definitely is getting all the top teams cycling through the schedule here. Possum will be looking to knock him back, and said back to 7-3. He'll try to move up to 7-3, and maybe create a big 7-3 log jam there at the top of the standings. So yeah, we will see what happens this week. It should be interesting. So we got a lot of the middling teams going up against each other, and then we've got some of the upper teams going up against lower teams there. So yeah. So Disco could really put a big dent in Ed Logger's playoff hopes. Said Biscuits could knock the Topes back to 500. big matchup for Shawshank and Dub C. Whoever wins that one, going to be back to 500. You both need that one. Whoever loses, Gags versus Saquon, is going to be in really tough spot there. They'll have 7 losses. They'll have to win out their schedule just to get back to 500 and be in a real tough spot there. And said Yinzer Jags versus Possum, 2 of the top teams trying to claw each other there. So I don't expect a lot of movement in the standings here, even if things don't go too good for some of the guys. Like said, I'm kind of expecting to lose this week. I have some tough matchups. Jim has some good matchups, and get knocked back to 500. But I still think the way that some of the other things play out and going forward, that I can afford a loss this week and still be in the contention there. But like I said before, I'm already playing it as if I'm fighting to try and take that one last playoff spot for myself. Looking at it as the other 5 are already claimed, and just trying to get past the rest of you guys who are trying to fight your way up for those last 2 playoff spots there. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Already crossed the 1 hour threshold here, I see, which I didn't really want to do, but ended up happening anyway. So, all right, everyone. Thanks for listening or watching or whatever it is you do. Hopefully everyone's teams and players meet or exceed expectations this week. Hopefully we get back to some big-time scoring and some more things that get a little bit more exciting going down the stretch here. And yeah, we will see you guys back here next week to discuss the events of Week 10. Already getting into double digits, winding down the season already here as we get into the meat of the playoff race. Here, like I said, it is going to be a real difficult one because a lot of the spots I think are going to be taken up already. Possum could, Yinzer Jags could knock Possum Magic back. Ed Lager could always pull off a miracle and knock Disco back. Topes could knock off Biscuits, and that could make things even more muddled in the middle there. And the chase, those 6-3 teams, they're not invulnerable. So we still got a chance to see how things shake out. But I am not too optimistic that there are many playoff spots left up for grabs here. Basically the gist of it. So, all right. Again, thanks for watching. We will see you back here. Good luck. Meet or exceed expectations. Big scores this week. Let's all go. Yay, sports. And we will see you back here next week to talk about Week 10. All right, guys. Thanks, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.